basically, where I left off was I traveled to Africa. I recorded traditional African music. Um, I got caught in a civil war and a conflict situation. I had to flee on the backs of motorcycles past rebel roadblocks. Then I ended up in a recording studio, doing an internship at a recording studio in Johannesburg, South Africa. Um, and then, unbeknownst to the producer who put me up in with his star singer was a crackhead. Her boyfriend was a crack dealer. So I ended up in this crack house in Johannesburg, South Africa. I ended up going to Madagascar and seeing all the amazing animals and creatures all over the place in Madagascar. Um, I it was quite an experience. Oh yeah, and then I talked about how I, traveled around uh, Turkey and Eastern Europe and Georgia, the country, with my buddy Clay. How I almost got raped in a bathroom. Um, I know, right, Joshua? So when I returned, mind you, this is my first bout with tendonitis back then, and when I returned, I was still having to get over the tendonitis. Um, so I stopped producing electronic music. But my friend who was leading a burlesque variety show, Clay Mazing, who is now the leader of the Emergency Circus, offered me a gig, no money involved, but he offered to have me be the sound tech for his burlesque show. Because I had the skills as an electronic music producer. I was an aspiring producer. Um, and so I started doing these burlesque variety shows, and my first role on stage was actually operating this giant puppet. This is when George Bush was president, back in 2007. So I was Monkey Bush, and I was this giant gorilla character. And then I went from that. My graduation present to myself when I graduated college was a gorilla suit. So then they had me dress up in the gorilla suit, and I chased around all the women, the burlesque dancers around the stage. It was pretty funny. Um, so we started this group called Parasol Project, and we started putting on these big shows and these big events, these themed art parties. And it we got kind of big in Tucson, Arizona. We realized that we could get press and media coverage whenever we sent out a press release, because Tucson isn't the biggest town. It just hit 1 million people in population. Um, so, it's not the biggest city, and we gained a lot of kind of notoriety, local fame as Parasol Project. And, our first themed art party was Atomic Number 10. It was a huge success, and I got inspired to produce the Tucson Sculpture Festival, right? Because I had met all these sculptors in the Warehouse Arts District in Tucson, Arizona. And I was really inspired by how they could create all of these crazy metal sculptures. And I realized that the metal workers, the people that work with steel and titanium, that was the real magic, because these materials are very strong. So I produced the first annual Tucson Sculpture Festival during the Tucson Gem and Mineral Show. That's a trade show for gems and fossils and giant rocks and stones and things that people like to put in their homes. And I figured, oh, sculptures are another thing that rich people will buy to stick in their homes. And I produced this festival, and it was a success. It sold art, and all the sculptors wanted to do it again the next year. They sold their work. It's really hard to sell artwork. I was essentially the curator of this art show, and we had different performances. We even had our own variety show for the first sculpture festival, I had this idea to promote it, to be human statues, right? To stand there perfectly still. We got invited to do this little event from the Flam Shen to benefit the All Souls procession. Tucson has the biggest All Souls procession. And they said we could do whatever we wanted, so my inspiration was, hey guys, let's be human statues and stand there perfectly still. And, just be statues there. And so we did that, and that was a huge hit. We were the first human statues that Tucson had ever seen. So all these other groups and organizations wanted to book us to be human statues. And So we started getting all these gigs, being human statues, and we were making like $35 an hour, um, being human statues, and just standing there. And when people would tip, I was a musical human statue. I would play the glockenspiel whenever people would tip me $1, and we ran into all kinds of crazy experiences with, like, a drunk lady groping me. Drunk ladies like think that they can just grope you if they want to. um, Crazy stuff happened. um, and they wanted to keep doing the Tucson Sculpture Festival, so I did it the second year, and then the third year I sold a large sculpture. I made like $2,000 off of this one sale of a large sculpture. But for the third Tucson Sculpture Festival, well, mind you, through being a human statue and standing there perfectly still, I discovered the art form of levitation, right? Through the internet. I'd learned meditation from a guru in Turkey, but I discovered levitation on my own through being a human statue, and through the meditation that I would do while being a human statue, I discovered that I could levitate while holding onto the cane. I have to hold on to something for balance. It's really strength and balance. But it creates the, it's a form of suspension, actually. A levitation I've been working on with the Tesla coil, which is actually where I'm actually able to rise up off the ground. Now, for the first time I ever levitated in a public performance, it was for the Tucson Sculpture Festival, right? It was pretty awesome. And it was a big hit. And I realized, and I had okay, backtracking a little bit, I had a landscaping business, right? At this time, I was a landscaper. I would clean up the yards of rich people and rake the leaves and, prune trees and cut down trees and plant trees and, install drip irrigation. And while I was baking my brains out in the heat and the sun, I realized, I'm attractive. I'm talented. I think I can make it. I think I can make it in the entertainment industry if I move to Los Angeles and, get my feet in there. And I realized also that I can make more money per hour being a human statue, just standing, as a street performer, as a human statue. I was making $35 an hour as opposed to $20 an hour. Don't worry, sweetie. If you walk, this is the field of vision. Do you need something?
No, you're using my cell phone charger.
Oh, well, the other one is somewhere around there.
It's okay.
My girlfriend is in the she's really concerned because she's walking around naked. She doesn't want the camera to see. I don't want you guys to see. Anyways, so I sold my landscaping business, and I moved to Los Angeles to pursue my dreams of being an entertainer. And I was making more money per hour being a human statue, and I realized I could make even more money by being a levitating human statue. And so I, took to the streets in Santa Monica, and I got this apartment in Los Angeles. Thanks, Josh. And, I started making my way, and, my goal was to be a musician, to, get booked and be a professional musician. But the music industry is really, really tough nowadays. It's really hard to be an electronic music producer and be earning your living off of producing original music, producing original electronic music. You really have to work it. And so, as this human statue street performing, oh yeah, mind you, I was telling you guys that I apprehended a burglar this week, right? And you guys are going to see this video posted right after this video. The best day of my life, right before I moved to LA, was when I tackled a purse snatcher in front of Trader Joe's. This is the best day of my life. I was a hero, right? And it feels really good to be a hero and put your courage on the line. And it was really crazy because this is like Saturday morning, and we're young guys in our 20s, and I filled my roommates into the car. It was like I got all my friends and roommates into the car to witness this event. And even while we're driving down the road, I see my friend Emily walking down the street. And we're like, hey, Emily, hey, fancy seeing you walking down the street. Would you like to go to Trader Joe's with us? And she hopped in the car and came with us to Trader Joe's. My best friend Clay was there. Reuven was there. This other girl, Nicole, was there. And we're in Trader Joe's, and I hear this woman cry out. She cries, "My purse! My purse! That man has my purse!" And I look, and there's this big, heavy-set guy running out the door with this woman's purse. And I'm like, my knee-jerk, instinctual reaction was, get that man! Chase after that man and get him. So I run out the door at Trader Joe's, running after this guy, and when I get up on him, this guy was big. He was a large man. I get up to him, and I just get him kind of in a headlock around his neck and just pull down with all my weight, pulling him down to the ground. And I pull him down to the ground, and I try to grab the purse from him, but he's not letting go of the purse. So I punch him in the head, right? I mean, I just punched him. And then all of a sudden, my buddy Clay and one of the Trader Joe's bouncers, I like to call them bouncers now, because they have some burly dudes employed at Trader Joe's. They grab the guy and they lift him up onto his feet. And the guy is now fighting with them. They have each one of his arms. He's fighting with them. And then I just take a cheap shot and I punch him in the face again. Because he was fighting with them. I punch him in the head because he's not letting go of the purse. He's still fighting. And I start yelling. I'm like, yeah, that's right. You're too fat to be trying to run. I mean, I'm a young guy in my 20s. I hadn't learned my spiritual path yet. I'm like, yeah. And as I'm walking back up to the Trader Joe's, they subdued the guy and he let go of the purse. As I'm walking back, my other friends, the girls, Emily and Nicole and Reuven, were right there at the entrance, a little bit closer up, and they're like, yeah, Danny. And then all the people that were shopping in Trader Joe's had come out to see what this commotion was, right? All these older people. This is early Saturday morning at a Trader Joe's, so it's all these older people shopping at this time. And they all applauded me. I got applauded, and then I get a gift certificate to Trader Joe's. And the whole time I'm finishing up my grocery shopping trip, and all of these older people are like thanking me. They're wanting to shake my hand. They're like, thank you very much. We, saying different things. We feel so much safer that there's people like you in the world. Really, really great. Made me feel really good about myself. Another time, my neighbor chased this guy out of her yard. She had a yard thief, like a tweaker guy, and I chased this guy around the neighborhood. And I realized, I didn't chase him initially. I went and got my bicycle, and I got on it and got my cell phone, and then I did like a perimeter loop around the alley that I saw him run down. And I didn't see him, and I realized, well, he must have like run into some other yard. So I went down the alley and I looked over the fences of every single house in that alley. This is in Tucson, Arizona. Looking over the fences, and I see him in this yard. I see the guy, and he's got this hose going. Turn the hose on, and he's like spraying his face down. He's like spraying himself down. It looks like he was overheating. Right? I started talking to him. I'm like, what are you doing here? He's like, why is there so many neighbors in this neighborhood? Why is everybody out? And I'm like, I realized pretty quickly that this guy's on meth. I'm like, because I said to him, I'm like, hey, I realize he's not quite right. He's like, where's everybody? I see all these eyes looking at me. And I'm like, dude, you're having a bad trip, man. I'm sure, but don't worry, you'll come out of it soon. You'll come out of it sometime. And he says, oh yeah? Have you ever had a bad trip on meth? Right? This guy had pawn store. Finally, the husband of the woman that chased him out comes up, and he like was trying to bust down the gate. I'm like, hey, dude, like you could just open it right here. And he comes in, and he wants to attack the guy. He wants to beat the guy up, but the guy just cowers. The husband's like this shorter guy, but he's kind of buff, stocky, and the tweaker guy is like, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to hurt anybody. And the husband doesn't know what to do when the guy's cowering. The burglar thief guy's all cowering. And I just start in on him. I followed the husband in. And I start saying, you made some bad choices in life, but you know what? You can get help. You can get better. You can get sober. You can get your life straightened out. And then when the police come, he's like throwing his cigarettes out. He's like, I'm trying to ditch my meth. I'm trying to ditch my drugs. And the police show up, and then they take me outside, and they're questioning me, and then they handcuff the guy, and they're pulling all these pawn store receipts out of his pockets, And then the guy calls out for me. He's like, "Where's that first guy I was talking to? I'm an addict. I need to talk to a fellow addict." Right? It's pretty ridiculous. Um, so I try to be a hero. I try to save the day and, protect people. And I have a lot of courage. I'm a Leo, and my name is Daniel. Daniel fought the lions. So anyways, backtracking, forward tracking, I was a hero, but I was also a street performer. And being a street performer in Los Angeles, in Santa Monica, a levitating human statue, whenever people would tip me, I would levitate as the reward for the donation. And, I learned how to work an audience, work a crowd, how to heckle people back. I had to deal with a lot of hecklers. It was really an awesome experience. And people kept telling me, I even had this Jewish lawyer guy come up to me and tell me, he took me out, him and his wife took me out to dinner, and they're like, "We want to help you. We want to help you find an agent. We're Jewish, so we have a lot of Jewish connections." But that didn't pan out. But people kept telling me, "You got to go on America's Got Talent. You got to go on America's Got Talent." And I kind of didn't want to do it because I had heard from a lot of other magicians that don't go on that show. They treat magicians like horribly, really badly. But, I went on the show because my grandparents loved that show. They said that the previous year they had watched every single episode of the season. Right? And I was like, well, it'll make my grandparents really proud. What's up, X-Craw? Yeah, and, I would have the weirdest people coming up to me, though, while I was street performing. Like, I had this guy come up, and he was like, "I have dermatitis in my ear." And I'm like, "A human statue. I have dermatitis in my ear. Maybe you can help." Right? "I have dermatitis in my ear." I'm like, "I can't help you." And he's like, "Maybe you could say a prayer for me." He thought that because I could levitate that I could just cure him of his ailments, I had this other woman come to me, and she was like, "Please give me a blessing." And I was like, "Okay." And then she kneels before me, and I put my hand on my head, and I said a prayer for her, just to make her happy. It's all placebo. If it makes you feel good, if it makes you feel better. So I went on America's Got Talent, and I fasted from no caffeine, no alcohol, no masturbation, no sex, right? Nothing, nothing, no drugs, nothing. I fasted for months before I was to appear because I wanted to do a really, really good job in my first performance on America's Got Talent. The key to success, one key to success is refraining from poisonous substances. And also in Tantra, you'll learn that when you refrain, your second chakra is your creative chakra. This is your private parts. When you refrain from, as a man, when you refrain from ejaculating, you boost your creativity, right? You boost your power, because when you release, when you give yourself that release, it depletes you of some of your creative energy, right? So I had my episode, I shaved my head, right? I shaved my head to be the monk character that they wanted me to be. I was never really a monk, and the Baha'i Faith actually says, look, see, I have hair. And the Baha'i Faith actually says that the monks should come out of their cloisters to share their knowledge with the rest of the world, that now is a time and age when work is elevated to the station of worship. If you are working hard to something that benefits society, then you are elevated to the station of worship. And the purpose for monks back in the day was because back in the day, this was the medieval ages and before. This is the time when armies would come in and pillage a location, they would go into the libraries and burn all the books. They would try to burn the history and the knowledge of those people that they were taking over. So the purpose of the monks, in my mind, was to preserve the ancient knowledge, the ancient wisdom, because they would shut themselves away up into the monasteries, way up in the mountains. So, purpose of monks. We're getting into a time and time period when the need for monks is no longer so strong. So here's my experience on America's Got Talent. I initially, when I went for the first audition, they really used me. They were using a lot of people in there, and this is where I start to talk about the stuff that I could actually get sued by America's Got Talent for saying. Don't tell them I said this, please. This is where my hater fans will really get me in trouble, but because I do actually have hater fans that they follow me just because they love to hate me, which is kind of ironic. But they add to the views, so whatever. And having haters, really, that's the first step in acknowledgement that you're doing something that gets people's attention. So America's Got Talent, they used me as like B-roll. They're always trying to use people as B-roll extras and not pay them. And they brought me into this room. They gave me a special audition where I didn't have to wait in long lines. Some of these people had been waiting for 24 hours in all these lines, and they're making all these people wait. And they usually don't even get an audition, right? They make all these people wait in order to get these B-roll shots of all these people waiting in line, desperately trying to get on America's Got Talent. So they take me to this room and they have me levitate in this room in front of all these people, and they sit these people in front of me like they have to watch me. And after I levitated, these people did not want to talk to me. It's these big black ladies, right? They were all like, right? Because they had been waiting for maybe 12 hours. And then they bring me in like, oh, look at this guy with his awesome effect, with his awesome levitation. And we're going to use you guys to be behind him, for our shot. And, these ladies had just felt utterly perturbed that they had been giving the runaround and that they were getting the short end of the stick. And here I was, one of these acts that was actually going to make it onto the show. So then, this is not the actual audition. They have me do the television audition at the Pantages Theater. And I had 3 of my ex-lovers came to see me, and my mother and my brother, and my friend Sammy, and Ryan Maxey. Hey, what's up, David? They all came to see me at the Pantages Theater, and I had no idea that I was going to do well when I went on America's Got Talent. I had no idea what was going to happen, I thought that they were going to boo me. I knew that they were going to X me. I knew that the beginning when I was throat singing and preparing for the levitation, I knew that they were going to not like it. And, I was prepared to hear that X. So I just tuned it out. It was really easy, actually, to just tune out the X because I was like, yep, there it is. I already expected it, because if you expect the worst, but hope for the best, then, you won't be disappointed. And, I did the levitation. I was really nervous, but because I had psyched myself up and prepared myself and got into that meditative state, I did really well. And I accomplished the act. And actually, it was really funny because my producer didn't want to do the pyrotechnic effect. And then that day, this pyrotechnic guy comes up to me. He's like, yeah, so we're going to do this flash pot for you. He's like, I'm excited because they never have me work. Usually I'm just doing safety. I was like, okay, well, they're doing the flash pot smoke poof explosion. So I did it. I levitated and got a standing ovation, and then they liked me, and I got sent to the next round, and it made me utterly, incredibly happy, right? So happy. And then they were filming all these B-roll shots of me in front of the Pantages Theater afterwards on Hollywood Boulevard. And from then, when they were letting out all the people that had witnessed, they have all these not actors, they're like people in the audience, but they're trying to get shots of the live audience. All all those people were coming out. They're all yelling, "There he is! There's Special Head! Oh my God, you are awesome! There he is! Oh my gosh!" And that was like the first little taste of like fame, success. You know, that was the biggest theater that I'd ever performed at, was the Pantages up until that point. You know, and I did that, and you know, the next round, you know, I was so thrilled and happy, and okay, Melissa, do you want your cell phone charger?
No, it's fine.
I gotta get ice. I gotta ice my hands because of this tendonitis. Look, do you guys want to see my fish? Look, there's my fishies. I'm gonna ice my hands. Oh my gosh. Melissa, I have no idea where this other fish went. Somehow one of our fish got lost. It just went missing. It didn't die. I did a magic show and I lost the fish.
Maybe it's underneath the shell.
The shell?
Yeah.
I don't know. Both the shells are upright. You think it got caught underneath the shell?
Maybe.
Oh my gosh. Okay, we're going to take a really quick break to see if the fish got caught under the shell, guys. All right? I'm gonna lift these shells around to make sure that the fish is not there. Okay, guys. Maybe it's under the shell. Oh my God, Melissa, you were right! It was under the shell! Look, there he is. Are you alive still? Oh my God. There's the missing fish. Are you dead? Oh my God, Melissa was right. Oh my God, I hope it's okay. Do you see him? He's the one that's down there. Oh my gosh. You guys, Melissa's so smart. Oh my God, you're alive. Look, this is the one down here. It's still alive. Oh my gosh, I was wondering where that one went. Oh my gosh. I can't believe that. When I was cleaning out the tank, I was cleaning out the water, and all the shells got moved around, and the shell got caught underneath. Melissa, you were right.
Yay!
Melissa's so smart.
Is the fish alive?
Yes, the fish is alive. You should have seen it when I pulled the shell up.
What happened?
It was dazed and disoriented. It's the small. I had created this act. You know, I was doing live looping beatboxing. I had already toured up the West Coast doing my own tour. It was really incredible. And I know I'm leaving little stories out. There's like some really funny stories in between here. This is just the broad overview. Crazy stuff happens to me all the time. Okay, I don't know why my life is so crazy, so entertaining. Someday I will write a biography of all the craziness. So I was doing live looping beatboxing. The name Special Head, I was actually doing this kind of like dirty, raunchy pimp character that I was doing comedy hip hop. And it was funny. I was, you know, rapping and doing live looping beatboxing, the like and so I did this act for my second round in Las Vegas where I created a track with live looping beatboxing and playing a xylophone and playing a bass guitar. And then I did the Matrix lean while singing to the song. You know what they did? They cut out my music. They didn't want me to be known as a musician. They just cut it out and they showed the part where I did the Matrix lean over the candles, right? And hey, what's up, Nick? Being a human statue is what triggered my powers. So just standing there completely still and having to meditate and stuff. So anyways, they cut my act, and you know the Las Vegas round was awful. You know what they're doing when they send America's Got Talent contestants to Las Vegas is they're trying to make them crack. They're trying to make them fail. They're putting them under intense pressure, right? I felt like we were herded around like cattle, okay? And they had us in this hotel in Bally's, which is the cheaper hotel, but then they had us walking all the way to Planet Hollywood every day. And they would herd us around. And I started mooing. I actually started mooing like we were cattle. I was like, moo. But there was kind of some funny situations where, there's all these contestants from all over the world, or from all over yeah, there's some world people from other countries too, but all over the country. And they stick you in these situations where they're like, okay, now you three are going to have to talk to each other, right? Or just, you're not even talking to each other. You're just like there as B-roll. They're just like arranging you in these arrangements of like, oh, people sitting around in a circle. And like, we would end up in a situation where there'd be like this cowboy guy, you know, and I'd be talking about levitation, and he would say, well, you know what? The only thing that I know to be real is that Jesus Christ is our Lord and Savior. And then I say to him, I was like, well, maybe I start talking to him. I'm like, maybe the reason why Jesus didn't explain evolution to those people way back then was because they had no foundations of science to understand it. Maybe Jesus didn't want to explain too much to those people because it would have gone right over their heads and would have confused them. And he just starts doing this. He's like, talk to the hand. I start talking about, gives me talk to the hand, and I was talking about spirituality and different religions and how, I was just talking about, spirituality and religions and levitation. And this guy chimes in from the side, he's like, well, the only thing that's real is Jesus Christ, and then I start to chime in and be like, well, actually, maybe Jesus didn't explain certain things to those people back then. Maybe Jesus didn't explain to people the internet, the telecommunications revolution, the industrial revolution, because it would have gone right over their heads. And really, that's what Revelations was trying to explain, was that this is a new world, a new era. He just does talk to the hand to me. And I was like, you were the one that was engaging in our conversation. You chimed in, and then when I try to respond to you, you give me talk to the hand. There was this one girl that was a country singer from Mississippi, and she says to me, she's like, this contestant, she says, I don't know why people think that people from Mississippi are so backwards and racist. We're not racist. And I say to her, well, would you ever consider having sex with a black man? She goes, no. Would you ever see a giraffe having sex with an elephant? And I go, wait, hold on. Let me explain something to you. Black people and white people are the same animals. Humans. Giraffes and elephants are different animals. Giraffes have long necks. Elephants have long trunks. Black guys have long dicks. You should give it a try. It'll be great. And she just like rolls her eyes at me. I swear to God, this was an actual conversation. So it was really interesting, and I made some friends. It's interesting the conversations that you would have with these people. But right off the bat, they give people in the Las Vegas round this like free trip, right? Or this free, like, they don't even have to audition. They're like, you get the free pass. You don't even have to audition, right? They give it to like the Booty LA guys, and they let the Booty LA guys sing the same song over and over again. They're like, booty, 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 whatever, BOOTY, right? They're like, we want to be a one-hit wonder. They let these guys do the same song over and over. Whereas me, like, I'd only been practicing levitation and magic for a year. I only knew how to levitate. That's the fakir yoga balance, the fakir levitation suspension. I'd only been doing this for a year, and I didn't realize that there were 6 rounds on America's Got Talent. So I'm having to struggle to come up with new acts, whereas they let this, whereas a singer can just sing a new song. Whereas, the booty guys just get to sing the same song, and they give them a free pass, right? All the way to the finals, right? Because they knew that they wanted to appeal to the African American demographic, right? In the final round, when there were 6 final contestants, they had a country singer, they had a hip hop guy, they had a regular pop singer, right? Then they had a comedian, acrobats, and a magician, right? This is to fulfill all the interests of everybody, all the demographics could be fulfilled. And the booty guys who got to do the same song over and over again were one of them, because they were like, okay, these guys will appeal to the African American demographic. That's how the show works. They have the winners picked out ahead of time. So They sent these guys on to, pass them on to the next round. I felt bad for Mike Bone, Little Mike and Funny Bone, because they like humiliated them and they tried to pit them against each other. So they did this thing that was really awful to me, right? Well, first off, right before they're having you go out and do your audition, they stick you in front of a TV screen with the other contestants and they have you watching your other peers that are in the same category. Like I was in the novelty category, or you could be in the comedian category, right? They stick me with these guys and they're like, "Oh, like you when we're watching the other contestants perform, they try to get us to talk smack about the people that we had just made friends with, right? They they were trying to get. They're like, "What do you see? Well, what do you see wrong about that? Don't What do you think they could do better?" Right? They're trying to twist the knife to get us to talk smack, and we're feeling bad about it, because we're like, we just made friends with these guys. We don't want to talk bad about their act, and they're putting us through this like nervous thing right before our act, trying to make us all like nervous and flustered. Um, so then what they did, I thought my act went good, and like Melby and Heidi was smiling big to me. They all seemed like they liked it, you know. And then when they're announcing the results, you know what they did? They told me, "Sorry, you failed. You're not going through to the next round." Then they sent me on this gauntlet of different people asking me, "How do you feel right now? Do you feel really bad? You know? Don't you feel bad right now? You just lost. You got kicked off of America's Got Talent." Trying to get me to cry or something, trying to get me to crack. And then, as soon as I get done talking to these four different, I talked to Nick Cannon, I talked to two of the producers. After I get done talking to these people, they have me talk to the AGT lawyer, and she's like, "Actually, your contract is still good with us because you're not kicked off the show. We just did that to you to see how you would react. You're actually on standby, right? You're on the standby list. We're going to try to fit you into the next round." Really, what the standby list meant was that they wanted to have some kind of leverage over my next act, right? So when I get the call from the producer the next week, they're like, "So we want you to be on the show for the Radio City Music Hall round, but we want to make sure that what you're going to do is going to be really awesome. We want to make sure that you're going to do something really incredible." They're doing this because they want to control my next act. They want to have leverage over me, right? So from the get-go, they're trying to talk me into doing this disappearing illusion, right? They're trying to get me to let them build this disappearing illusion for me, right? And I'm kind of like, "No, I want to levitate above a Tesla coil." But they keep talking me into it. They're like, "Well, I don't know. I don't know if this is going to be awesome enough. We want to make you disappear," right? So I let them talk me into it, but I shipped the Tesla coil. I was experimenting with levitating above a Tesla coil. I have this Tesla coil shipped out to New York City. It gets out there, and then they tell me, "No, actually, we're not going to let you do the Tesla coil levitation. How about you just do your regular levitation, and we'll make you disappear," right? They talked me into it, and I should have just gone out and been like, "Well, if you're not going to let me do the levitation the way I wanted to do it, I'm just going to read a poem." That would have really put them in a bad place, because then, they already wanted me to get off the show. They'd even screwed me around where they set me up for a later date, and then last minute they're like, "No, you have to come in earlier." Because they wanted me to lose as a magician to Colin's Key, right? That was their plan. So they do this big thing, and they build this pyramid for me, and they have these guys just standing there as guards, these people that they hired that were like Broadway show people, and those people didn't want to even talk to me. They were like in my act, and they were so conceited towards me, like they didn't want to be my friends. um, and so in rehearsals, like they told me, "Oh, you'll be able to see what the camera looks like, what your rehearsal looks like." Like the whole time I'm wanting to rehearse, and they're not letting me rehearse. They're just wanting to shoot all this B-roll with me. They take me to Times Square, and like all these people are recognizing me. Oh, and by the way, when I first got recognized after the Las Vegas round, it was right when the episode aired. I forgot to mention this, right? I'm going to backtrack a little bit for a second. Um, when my episode aired, they wouldn't even tell us when our episode would air, right? The only way I knew was because my phone blew up, right, with all of these messages and calls. Somehow my phone number was on the internet and people were calling me to congratulate me. And my Facebook was blowing up, right? It was exploding, right? And the woman from their Twitter that handles the AGT Twitter came up to me. She's like, you're trending globally right now. You should check it out. It's pretty big. It's a pretty big deal. Um, and I didn't have a YouTube channel. I didn't even have an Instagram. I didn't have a Twitter. I was like, I don't even have a Twitter. And she's like, get on Twitter right now. And I had to deal with impersonators. Immediately, people set up impersonator accounts, right? They became bigger than me on Twitter, right? I didn't even know how to manage Twitter. I was not savvy with the computer social media tech, um, and I was like scrambling to find where my phone number was on the internet. I answered this call where this guy recorded a video of him talking to me on the phone and it posted it to YouTube, right? I had people calling me saying, how much drugs you got to do to levitate like that? And this is like 8 in the morning when it's like tweakers that were still awake from partying the night before, right? I'd have a guy be like, the jig is up. We know that you didn't really levitate. What you're gonna do for the Las Vegas round? We know that I had haters calling me, all kinds of weird stuff, and I had to like try to get these imposter accounts off of Twitter because people were going to Twitter and really thinking it was me. I had haters, posing as Simon Cowell's agent, and then I also had agents calling me up and wanting to represent me and all this stuff. It was really exciting. It was a roller coaster ride. And then I remember the first time I got recognized was on the strip in Las Vegas. And when I was doing the Las Vegas round, they had me dressing up in the robe, in my costume. And this guy recognized me. He's like, do it. Do the levitation with your stick. Do it right now. Do it. That was the first time I got recognized. And then, walking around Fremont Street in Las Vegas, I was getting recognized left and right. People wanting to take the picture with me. I mean, this is the first time that it happened to me. And it was really quite incredible. Sometimes I do still get recognized. Like if I shave my head and walk around with the robe and the cane, people will recognize me. But, with the hair and without the robe, people don't recognize me. So then I'm in Las Vegas, and when they were shooting the B-roll, they actually set off the smoke detector at the Hilton Hotel. It was pretty incredible, and I met with a fan who was suicidal, and I helped talk her out of suicide. I was really wanting to help people. I got all kinds of crazy questions and messages like, "Special head, please help. My cat keeps getting pregnant, but I don't want to take away my cat's freedom. What should I do?" And I'm like, dude, he's like, my cat keeps getting loose and getting pregnant. What should I do? I'm like, dude, just get your cat spayed, Then I got this one message, I got all these fan mail. It was ridiculous. I got this one with this kid that was like, "Special head, please help. I can't stop masturbating, and I know it's dirty and sinful. How do I stop?" And I'm like, well, as my father always said, don't sweat the petty stuff. Pet the sweaty stuff. No, I didn't say that to him. Actually, what I said was, well, a lot of people actually do that. Most men actually do that. Because I remember being in junior high, and nobody would admit that they masturbated, even though a lot of the kids had already started. And they'd be like, "Ew, you probably masturbate, don't you?" And they'd be like, no, I don't masturbate. It was like this dark secret that everybody had. And then in high school, everybody was like, finally got mature enough to be like, yeah, everybody does it. So I told him, I was like, don't be ashamed, because most men actually do this. Most people, most men still do this, but the one thing you've got to keep in mind is the time and effort and energy that you're spending doing that, you could be spending on being more productive and working on more important things, right? And save it for her. So it was really quite entertaining, some of the messages that I would get at people asking me for help. I got this one kid that was asking me to be, that telling me that he had had a dream about me before I levitated on America's Got Talent, that somebody would go on America's Got Talent and levitate, and that that person would be the reincarnation of Buddha. So this kid is thinking that I'm the reincarnation of Buddha, right? Um, and I had to tell him, like, no, I'm not. Because Baha'u'llah, the prophet of the Baha'i Faith, he was the reincarnation of, the Buddha, the reincarnation of Christ, the reincarnation of Muhammad. Um, so forward tracking for a second, set off the smoke detector at Radio City Music Hall. I was getting recognized in Times Square, left and right. They had me like, they wanted this shot of me just meditating in Times Square, and this huge crowd formed around me, this circle where everybody was like, "Oh my gosh, is he gonna do it?" Everybody's like, "Is he gonna levitate?" Right? And then I didn't levitate, and everybody was like, "What the heck?" I thought he was gonna levitate. I was like sitting there meditating, and they didn't want the levitation shot. They just wanted the me floating shot. So the opening night, when I did the I will answer questions at the end of this video, okay, guys. Before I did the opening night, they had me walk the red carpet, and this was the first time that I'd ever walked a red carpet, a real deal red carpet, and it was so overwhelming. And somehow I ended up the last person, which was very beneficial because I didn't have anybody behind me like hurrying me along. So I get up to the first spot in the red carpet walk, where it's like this wall of cameras and photographers, and they're all shouting at me, "Special head, over here, look at me," trying to get that shot of me looking at their camera, right? And they're like, "Special head, over here, look at this one, right here, this camera," and as I'm walking away from, I'm just like overwhelmed. I'm like, what? And as I'm walking away from them, I hear somebody shout, "This is your big shot, don't mess it up." Then I get to all these interviewers where they're asking me all these questions, right? Sometimes dumb questions. Like they ask me, "So, the Prince of England just had his first baby, but the baby doesn't have a name. What do you think what do you think they're going to name the baby?" And I'm like, oh my God, this is the dumbest freaking question ever. Because first off, the reason why they didn't name the baby yet was because they want to have two press releases. They want to have a press release where they're like, "The baby has been born." And then they want to have a second round of media where they're like, "Now the baby has a name." They really want to milk that stuff. So I'm like, well, if I was British, I would name the baby a proper British name. I would name the baby after my producer is named Nigel. I go to MTV Kids, and they're just cracking up the whole time. I was like, MTV had kids? Wow. It was funny. It was really fun, actually. And then it comes down to the live episode. In rehearsals, they have this disappearing illusion, which is really a screen that comes up, right? I did not really disappear. Of course, you already know that, guys. This screen, there's a poof of smoke, and this black screen rises up. And I'm ducking my head because I want to be behind the black screen. But then their production tells me, "Don't duck your head. You could ruin it. Just let us do all the work. Just hold perfectly still, and we'll make you disappear. Trust us," right? I'm like ducking my head. They're like, "We don't want you to see like your head go behind the screen. We don't want to see any movement behind the smoke." So I listened to them. I trusted them. The reason why they were telling me not to duck my head was because they wanted complete control over the outcome. And this is where I blow America's Got Talent out of the water, right? What you see in the live round, and if you rewatch the video, you see poof of smoke, and then you start to see my head, the glint off my head. And they wanted to create this giant hat above my head, right? This giant white hat to really solidify that. And I told them, "No hat. I want to do like a thing on my head." And poof of smoke, and then you see the glint off my head. The screen hadn't risen up yet. They had a delay on the screen. So what you see is my head starting to appear. And then you start to see the screen slowly starting to rise up. Hey, what's up, David? And hey, if you guys want to do a super chat donation, I'm not making very much money off the YouTube anymore because of the adpocalypse, right? There was a boycott of advertising on YouTube. So I'm not able to support myself with YouTube anymore. If you guys want to donate to my Patreon, the link is in the description. It really helps me, guys, if you support the channel. Even $1 helps me, and it shows me that you guys appreciate what I'm doing and making the world a more magical place. America's Got Talent sabotaged me, right? They told me not to duck my head, and you see that black screen go up, and I got booed by 5,000 people at Radio City Music Hall, right? My heart sank, and I actually said, "Shit," on live television. You can hear it in the episode. You hear me whisper under my breath, "Shit," right? I come off that pyramid, and I have a moment with Nick Cannon where he gives me the best advice that I've ever heard. I'm like, "Nick, what should I do? The illusion got ruined." And he says, "Just when you go out there, be as weird as possible." So when I go out there, I'm like, "Whoa, what's going on?" I'm confused and disoriented. And Nick Cannon totally threw me under the bus. If you rewatch the episode, you'll see he totally threw me under the bus, and he's like, "Where did you go? I don't know." He threw me under the bus with his reaction. It was really kind of sad the way he responded, but, they're paid millions of dollars, those judges and Nick Cannon, they're paid a lot of money to do the bidding of America's Got Talent, to do it, like they want. And, I don't know. It was really, really sad how they treated me. And then when I couldn't sleep that night. I got sleep deprivation. And, because I was just so distraught that they had sabotaged me. And then the next day, I was going to quit. I wasn't going to do the results portion of the show. I told my producer, I was like, "You guys sabotaged me. It's obvious. Like I want this episode cut out. I want them to apologize. I want to speak to the lawyer," right? I gave them hell about sabotaging my episode. And then in the end, I was just like, "You know what? I want to be a good boy, and I'm just going to go and do it. I'm going to go out on that stage and be a part of the results show," right? I was getting delirious, and I was making jokes. I didn't give up. There's something amazing that happens when you don't give up anymore. You become awesome. You start to become really awesome and great. Because when you don't care, that's when the true you comes out. Without all the masks and facades that you put on your face. What's up, Renzo? I remember you from Ireland. So, yeah, I was just, if you rewatch, I was just hating on the British monarchy. You might be able to appreciate that being Irish. I love you too, buddy. So the results portion, and this is one thing that they did to me, was in a questionnaire they had asked me, "Who is your favorite judge?" I responded, "Howie Mandel." Then in the results portion, they had Howie Mandel shout, "You blew it, special head!" They really had Howie Mandel come down on me hard because they knew that that's how they would twist the knife into getting me to cry or getting some reaction out of me. What's up, Dakota? I'm trying to do this at 4 p.m. every Sunday, Pacific Standard Time. I'm usually about 15 minutes late, so if you tune in at 4:30, you'll probably see me. Sometimes I'm not on here till 5. So I was livid. I was pissed, and I just didn't give up anymore. So when I got down, I started shouting. I was like, "They sabotaged me." I get into the round where there's the next round of America's Got Talent contestants are in the holding zone there. And I'm like, "You guys better watch your tech because they sabotaged my tech. They messed up my tech." And they'd done that to another little girl. There was a piano player, 8-year-old girl. They had a delay, a 1-second delay of the background music in her earpiece. Delayed that. And I don't know if that was intentional. Honestly, some of it, you have to wonder if they're just scrambling so quickly to produce this live show at Radio City Music Hall that they mess up the tech, right? They just mess it up. um, you know, inadvertently. Because I don't think that they would mess up the tech on that 8-year-old little girl, but she was crying too. And the producer came up to me and they're like, "Look, you still have to think about the wild card, right? You could be a wild card." And I'm like, "Man, you guys aren't gonna have me the wild card. I could already tell that your narrative was getting me off the show, justifying getting me off the show by making me fail in this tremendous way, because I was so popular, right? I was so popular before you had to sabotage me to justify. And I know that I had enough votes to get me past that round, even with the sabotage, because people loved me that much. But in the contract, this is how America's Got Talent works, is that the votes do not count. It says in my contract, even though this is a voting contest, the final decision of the contest is left up to the producers of America's Got Talent. So it's a lie. And you don't actually win $1 million. You win a $1 million annuity that's paid out over the course of 25 years. 40 years, $25,000 every year. BS. So, yes, AGT, I am outing you. Yeah, it's all like kind of fake, guys. What they did to me, they will sabotage acts. They will use editing to sabotage acts. And you know, that's just what they do. That's the world of reality TV and how they do it. You know, it's a sad thing. And I don't know, everybody was telling me afterwards, don't speak out against them. They'll blacklist you in the entertainment industry. At some points, I wish I had, because I think everybody in the entertainment industry knows that America's Got Talent is BS, and they are horrible to the contestants, and they sabotage people. AGT is not real, no. The acts are already picked out who's going to win. So I was really depressed and distraught that they had done that to me. You know, and the one thing that I realized is, before they're going to sabotage you, what they do is they butter you up. They really start being nice to you. My producer started singing to me, and then when I went on Germany's Got Talent, Das Super Talent, they actually paid me to go out to Germany, to Wiesbaden. But the thing, when they were going to X me off that show, was their producer sing to me. When they X'd me off America's Got Talent, their producer would sing my name. Then he'd be like, "Danny, special head." He would sing my name to me. It was really bizarre. I wonder if that's something that they taught you, that they taught the producers as a way to like build rapport and butter you up. I was really, really upset too that they wouldn't let me do the Tesla coil. It would have been really, really awesome, but they wouldn't let me do the Tesla coil, and then they sabotaged me. You know, and I was talking smack. I was like, they sabotaged my tech, and the producer was like, "We got to get him out of here." They had their psychologist talking to me because I told them that I had not slept the night before. They had this psychologist that works for NBC come out and talk to me, right? Because I was sleep deprived. She was making sure that I was okay, you know, and the whole time I was just talking smack about America's Got Talent. And I was like, you know, they sabotaged me. I hope you know that. I hope you realize that. That's why I'm so upset. They sabotaged me. And the whole time they're trying to isolate me off from the other contestants, because they're like, "Oh, he's like talking bad about the production, you know, and outing us for what we did, you know." And then they're like, "We got to get him out of here. We got to get him to his hotel room." So they escort me. Two of the PAs escort me out early, out of the holding. And oh yeah, before that though, they made me do this Orville Redenbacher commercial. They had me doing this commercial where they weren't paying me, right? I'm doing this Orville Redenbacher commercial, right, in this really hot room with really bright lights. And then Nick Cannon is grabbing my cane and saying it doesn't work, right? He's using me to like sell Orville Redenbacher. And the whole time there's this picture of Orville Redenbacher where he's like, "Hey, hey," and I'm thinking, "Hey, my great-grandchildren are rich, and we're exploiting you for our commercial." You know, Nick Cannon held up my cane and said, "Oh, there's no batteries in it." You know, he kind of made a mockery of my act and me to sell products. You know, this really taught me how to be betrayed. and how to not give a flying, you know what. It taught me a lot about myself, and it really, really humbled me. Because what happened when I went on America's Got Talent was, fame really messes with you. All the people coming at me, all the fan mail, trying to answer all the fan mail, um, you know, it messes with you, and it gives you a huge ego. It makes you really, really worried about what other people care about you. And after something like that happens, it really breaks down your ego. Yes, I will reply to you guys, and I will answer your questions after I'm done with my life story. Oh my gosh, I have to do this thing. This is this is how serious I am, guys. I'm taking you to the bathroom with me. I'm sorry. Look, everything is real if it's in your mind, all right? Sorry, I gotta do this, all right? You know what I'm doing, guys. Nature calls. This is a long live stream, and I bet nobody's ever taken a pee in the middle of a live stream, right? This is pretty awkward, right, guys? At least I took time out of my busy bathroom break to continue the live feed and not end it prematurely. I've never actually done this before. I am fasting right now. I'm doing the Baha'i fast. I'm not eating anything during the daytime. No food. I'm very, very hungry right now. It's making me lightheaded and disoriented. So if I seem high right now, I'm not actually high. Don't worry, Melissa. Just put clothes on, and then you won't be seen naked in my live feed. Okay? Don't don't be naked, girl. Don't be naked over there. Me and my girlfriend we're actually kind of nudists. Is that weird? Is that kind of weird? So anyways, these guys are going to escort me back to my hotel room, right? And right at this time, the whole audience from the results portion of the show is getting let out of the theater at Radio City Music Hall. And it's a huge crowd. And immediately, as soon as people see me, they're like, "Can I take a picture with you? Can we take a picture with you?" They're like, "Oh my God, it's a special head." I got hounded and crowded, right? And so the PAs were like, "No, no, we can't take him this way. We have to take him around this side," right? And so they take me around this back way, right, to avoid all the crowds. But still, there's people out there getting let out, right? I'm wanting to take pictures with all my fans, all the people that are coming out, right? And they're like, "No, no, no, we have to get you back to your hotel. That's our job. That's our task. We got to get you back to your hotel." And this is like my most famous moment. Was like people were like, "No, no, please take a picture with us. Take a picture with us." And I got followed through 4 or 5 blocks of Manhattan back to my hotel. I got followed by a crowd of people, right? And every stoplight that we had to stop at, I'd be like, "Okay, now you guys can take pictures with me." And a few people would take their pictures with me. And then the PAs would usher me, continue. "Okay, you got to cross now." I'd be like, "No, my fans, I want to take pictures with them." They're like, "No, you got to get back to your hotel," right? At one point, one of the fans said, "Hey, they sabotaged you, right?" That seemed like a total sabotage. And I was like, "Yeah, it was." I get back in my hotel, and I fell asleep. I finally fell asleep. But I was thinking suicidal thoughts. I mean, to be betrayed by people that made you their golden child. I mean, they were using me for all the advertisements on America's Got Talent. They were using me up, and it made my grandparents so happy. It made everybody so happy, and it became a talking point to my family and friends. All my relatives were calling my grandparents, congratulating them, and it made them so happy. And then later, the next year, my grandfather passed away. So even though, I went on America's Got Talent after only practicing levitation and magic for 1 year, and I felt like I should have prepared more acts and more things to do, I felt like, well, at least, my grandfather got to see me while he was alive go on national television. And it probably made them so incredibly happy. So the next year was followed by a lot of gig offers. It was followed by me going to Qatar, performing in Qatar and performing in Germany. Um, I did, and then I got a gig in Las Vegas. I got this show at Beecher's Madhouse, and they put me up in the MGM Grand, and I lived in the MGM Grand for a month and a half. I lived inside the casino. It was really, really freaky and weird because I was being watched constantly by security cameras all the time. You know how much security they have in the casino, um, and I had to walk through the casino every time I wanted to get to my car to go grocery shopping. If I was out past midnight, I would have prostitutes and drug dealers in the casino, like hustling me, being like, "Hey, what you want? What you need? I got cocaine. I got weed. What you need?" Or I'd have like a prostitute in the elevator, be like, "Hey, boy, you're so sexy. You want a date tonight? I give blowjobs for $200," and I'd be like, "Look, I live here. These are my groceries in my hands." I had a mini fridge delivered to my hotel room. Um, I found out that there was a free buffet for employees in the basement, so I started eating at that every single day, and I gained 10 pounds. Um, this show that I was in, Beecher's Madhouse, was a variety show. Look it up. It was really weird. They had all these little midgets, as they're called in the entertainment industry. They don't mind being called midgets because that's what they call them at Beecher's Madhouse. Little people. They had all these little people in the show. Actually, one of these little people solicited me for sex. She straight up said to me, we were talking about, she had her helper man who was also her boyfriend. They were in an open relationship. She said to me, by the way, I think you're pretty hot if you want to do it. And then she looked at her boyfriend and she was like, "Oh, we're in an open relationship, so don't worry, that's okay with us." And he was looking all awkward and uncomfortable, and he kept complaining to me about how she kept sleeping with all these guys, how she was like slept with the guys that work at one of the guys that work at Wendy's, right? And so I don't know, it was weird. Like I was tempted to sleep with a little person just because I was like, well, it would be an experience, right? It would be an experience to do that. But at the same time, like her as a person, like she smoked a lot of cigarettes. I don't like kissing people that smoke cigarettes. Um, I was a little turned off by her personality, honestly. And also, she was really, really small. She wasn't just like a midget, a little like dwarf person. She was like smaller than that. Like she couldn't open doorknobs, which is why she had a helper guy that would have to travel around with her, right? Um, so I passed up the opportunity, and part of me like kicks myself that I didn't do that because that would have been a story to tell. I guess it already is a story, but um, do you want me to get real? I'll get real. If you want me to tell you about one of my sexual exploits, it's a funny story that happened in Vegas. I will tell you guys, but I need a super chat donation if I'm gonna get real and get vulnerable and tell you guys about this sexy sexual thing that happened in Las Vegas. I will get like nitty gritty and real with y'all, but super chat, it's a way that you can donate a couple bucks or something. Donate $5. I'll send you. Donate $20 and I'll send you 2 CDs in the mail. Um, so I'm gonna breeze over the the. I'm gonna breeze over the other sexual exploits because, well, it could risk my girlfriend getting jealous, even though she probably already heard the story. Um, I met a girl on Craigslist there. I met this Craigslist girl that tried taking me to a sex club, but she only took me to the sex club to show me the sex club to see how I would react. She was a Jehovah's Witness, and that was a turnoff. But I was actually trying to be really good and abstain from alcohol. Um, my friend Duran got caught up. My friend Duran came and visited me, and he hopped into one of the limos to a free ride to a strip club, and then he wanted something more, so he went to a supposed brothel, but then he got like, he chickened out and got really paranoid and ran away, and they took his money from him. Um, I don't know, in Las Vegas you say crazy stuff. Like I saw this guy that was just like passed out with his pants down in the door jamb of a hotel room. You know, I would just have crazy drunk people like mess with me. This guy was like peeing on the ground in the casino. You know, um, I don't know. I would just have crazy stuff happen to me, and I am not gonna go. I had this. I saw this woman who started copying me doing the levitation thing, but she wasn't doing it right. She was doing it with a mechanism, a suspension mechanism. And I walked by her and I said, "Oh, it's Mrs. Specialhead." And she rolled her head. But then she friended me. She found me and friended me on Facebook, and then I became friends with her, and I found out that her and her boyfriend were tweakers. And so this Las Vegas fake levitation person was a tweaker. Right? And it was kind of weird that these tweakers were doing the levitation thing. Um, so Las Vegas, I had to get out of there. I was trying to find a place to stay, and I had met this girl on Craigslist who was like this Asian chick who turned out to be a really really messy girl. Her name was Jenny. I didn't know that because I didn't see her place, but she ended up riding back with me to well, that's weird, to LA on Valentine's Day. She stayed with me in my hotel room in Las Vegas for a week, and she helped me try to find places to stay. I tried to find this place to stay, and I kept ending up answering Craigslist ads for rooms from tweakers, right? From tweaker people, and this one lady, she offered a room for $150, right? The catch was that I had to put the electricity in my name because she had gotten it shut off because she was trying to steal electricity by tampering with the meter, okay? So then I gave her a $150 deposit. Then it turns out that she got evicted from her father at the condo. I showed up and it's completely pitch black. And she's like, you just have to turn on the electricity. So then she's like, oh, there's a new house that we found that we're going to rent. And you still can rent a room from me for $150 a month. But you have to still put the electricity in your name. I'm like moving my stuff into this room. And all of a sudden this little old man comes up to me and he's like, excuse me, sir, what are you doing? I'm like, I'm moving in. He's like, no, I'm the neighbor. I'm watching this property. This house is under foreclosure and there's not supposed to be anybody coming in here. So this woman was squatting the house and getting me to pay a security deposit money, to live there when she was just squatting it. So right then I was like, you better give me something. Give me the $150 back, blah, blah, blah. She was a tweaker. I didn't get my money back. And I left Las Vegas, and that was the last time I tried to live in Las Vegas. Las Vegas just has so many hustlers. There's a huge underbelly of just really shady people in Las Vegas just trying to hustle the tourists. They call it Sin City, and there's a lot of sin that goes on behind the closed doors. That summer, I went on tour with the Emergency Circus. I traveled around doing shows for kids in hospitals and group homes and women's shelters, foster care centers, orphanages. It was a really rewarding experience with my best friend Clay, who started the Emergency Circus. We traveled all around the country. It was hell because we went through 3 different vehicles. The original ambulance, they put gas in a diesel engine and it broke down. And then we had to rent a car. And then they bought a new ambulance. We rented 2 cars, actually. We got broken down in Mobile, Alabama. And somehow I broke down the next year in Mobile, Alabama. And there's no food to eat. There's no decent food to eat in Mobile, Alabama. We asked this guy, this black dude walking down the street. We're like, by the way, he's like, I just want to check you guys out because I hadn't seen you guys before. You're obviously from out of town. And I was just like, hey, maybe you could tell us where a good restaurant to eat is around here. And he's like, well, there's Church's Chicken and KFC and McDonald's. Well, I guess you guys probably already knew about all those. And we're like, yeah, we're trying to find something that is not those. We got swindled by the repair people. the mechanic. But it was really, really fun and rewarding to do all those shows for those kids. Um, let's see. What am I? Hold on, let me think for 1 second. What am I missing? I got an agent, and he started booking me all these shows, fairs and festivals. Oh, yeah, yeah. I'm going to get to you. I'm going to get to you meeting my special girlfriend. So, I was living in LA, and LA was miserable. And, that girl broke up with me. I started dating a Tantra sex worker. She was essentially a sex worker, but she wouldn't have sex with her clients. She just did Tantra with them. And she taught me all about Tantra, which is actually like yoga and meditation that incorporates your second chakra and sexual energy. It's like sex magic and sex energy. It's really quite powerful and amazing. I suggest any men look into Tantra because Tantra will teach you how to be a better lover. Because really, Tantra sex is not like penetration at all until like the last like little bit. It's like making the foreplay and the sexual interaction very, very slow. And that's women's number one complaint with their lovers is that men just try to jump right into sex without the foreplay. So I dated her, but she was crazy because she was essentially a sex worker and she, you know, sex work makes women crazy. I would have to hear her on the phone with these client men explaining to them that Tantra is like that they won't get to sleep with her because they're just expecting hippie sex. Um, so I broke up with her. Although it was interesting. She taught me a lot, And I went on. I started to get tired of LA, and I went on my second tour, doing my first magic tour around the country, doing magic shows. Ooh, play some background music for me, sweetie. Melissa's gonna play some music back there. Look, see, there she is. On the keyboard. Ooh, ooh. A little too sexy there. Just overalls, no bra. I'm just getting relaxed, guys. I hope you are too. We're here together. So, I went on this tour, and through this tour, I learned what real magic is. That real magic, well, during this tour, I had like a somewhat of an open schedule. I didn't have shows back to back to back, right? I had gaps in between, and because of the gaps, I had an open mind, and because I learned a certain degree of street smarts of being able to be able to read people's intentions and be able to see when positive doors were opening up, and take the positive doors rather than the negative doors. I had some incredible experiences while on tour. I had all these new shows open up and get booked for me, right? I met all of these amazing people, you know, through this tour. I mean, there was like this crazy, there was all these coincidences that kept happening to me, right? Where I would see one person in one town and then I would see them 3 states later. Like one example is this guy. This guy was. Oh my gosh, I gotta finish this up. I'm gonna wrap this up, guys, and then I'm gonna take some questions. My life story is gonna have to be 3 episodes. Gosh, it's so crazy. It just takes so long. So.
One for each decade.
I mean, yeah, something like that. More so like everything got more intense the past 2 years. And trust me, once I met Melissa, that was the real magic. This is the tour that led up to me meeting Melissa. And when I get back to the next live stream next week of my next life story portion, I'm going to tell you guys about the magic that was meeting my life partner. Actually, you know what, guys? What time is it? Is it time to end the fast?
You got 10 minutes.
10 minutes before I can finally eat food. I'm doing a fast and I'm so incredibly hungry. I'm going to muster the strength to not eat food. Okay, so It's really hard to not eat all day long. So, anyways, on this tour, when I started, I was in New Orleans and I did this show and I met these amazing people and I met this amazing Baha'i girl, and I met other Baha'is, which is really nice, and I was doing a show at this punk show. There was like DIY punk kids, and I did my levitation, and this guy walks up to me, and he shakes me, screaming in my face. He shakes me, going, ah! And he knocks me out of my levitation. And it was really disruptive, and I walk up to him, I'm like, why'd you do that? And he's like, I don't care, I don't want to talk to you. You're culturally appropriating. I'm not talking to you. And I was like, no, dude, you assaulted me. Like, I want to know, why'd you do that? Like, what? That was totally wrong. And then he's like, I'm not talking to you, I'm not talking to you. And then these three butch, like lesbian-looking chicks, like big, burly women, start pushing me. And they're like, get away from him, he doesn't want to talk to you. And I'm not going to hit a girl back, right? But I hate it when women when especially big, strong women use the fact that they're women to be able to like hit men and assault men. It's a real bummer when that happens. So then this same guy, I'm in Asheville, North Carolina, the next leg of my tour, meeting up with my friend Will, and I street performed, and then I went to this bar to talk with him. And I'm telling him this story about this guy assaulting me and accusing me of cultural appropriation. And I just happen to be wearing my robe that I wear when I levitate. And I see him walk into the bar 4 states later. This is a week later, 4 states away. He walks in on him right after I'm done telling the story. I'm like, dude, Will, you never believe this, but Mimi, the guy that attacked me, just walked into the bar. And he's like, no way. And I'm like, I'm going to have a word with him. So I walk up to Mimi and I'm like, hi, Mimi. What a pleasant surprise. I'm so happy to see you here. Hey, I was just wondering if this robe I'm wearing is cultural appropriation. And he's like, I don't care. You do whatever the fuck you want. Oh, shoot. I'm sorry for swearing, guys. I try not to swear. And I'm like, no, because I really want to know, because you assaulted me earlier in New Orleans for cultural appropriation. And he was with some friends. I'm like, yeah, guys, this is Mimi. He physically attacked me because I was quote-unquote culturally appropriating something. So I completely embarrassed him in front of his friends, right? And he was like, I just don't want to talk to you. And I was like, maybe this is God's... And then I see him at the grocery store later on. I'm like, Mimi, I just keep running into you everywhere. I think it's fate, right? Because I ran into you in New Orleans, I ran into you at the bar, and now I'm running into you at the grocery store. Maybe God is trying to give you the opportunity to apologize and realize that it's wrong to assault people. I tried to explain to him that cultural appropriation isn't really a thing, because unless you're making fun of and mocking somebody else's culture, it's not an issue, because everybody has different cultures, and culture is not stagnant. It's always evolving and progressing. And one of the things that makes culture is the fact that one people in one place see what another culture is doing, and then they borrow ideas. They borrow aspects of that culture, right? So I say to him, he's like, I don't care. I'm not apologizing. I don't feel bad about what I did at all. I'm actually happy. I attacked you because I was annoyed with you and thought it was funny. Then on the way out, one of the security guards says, yeah, you know what you should do? You should, next time you see that guy, you should crack him in the back with the 2x4 and say, yeah, haha, I did that because I thought it was funny. This same guy, Mimi, has actually attacked multiple people in New Orleans for cultural appropriation, physically, violently. One time he ripped a hijab off this girl's head and threw it on the ground and said, you're not, and she actually happened to be Armenian, and that was something that her family wore, right? That was her grandmother's hijab. Really, really upsetting stuff there. That was one of the many coincidences that happened. Then when I was going to New York, I run into my friend that I played a joke on at the Rainbow Gathering when I was trying to build the cult of levitation followers. We were starting a cult, and you guys too could be in my cult, and we'll film a movie together. So I see him up in New York randomly at a looping. I ran into Matthew Silver and I played a practical joke on Matthew Silver, And then he wanted to make a video with me. And, that was just a magical time with Matthew Silver. When two magical people come together, magic happens. Then they wanted me to do a performance in Asheville, North Carolina, right? A levitation charade. And then I went up to Chicago and up to Michigan and did shows up there. I was booking shows along the way, and I met up with people that believed in my levitation, right? And did little videos with them, where they believe, they wanted me to be their guru and stuff. And it was really quite magical. And, I randomly saw my friend Marilyn in Chicago. I messed with the Grateful Dead. The Grateful Dead fans were having the Grateful Dead 50th year anniversary, and I went outside of the show when everybody was tripping on acid, and I performed for them, and I did this awesome levitation, and everybody was blown away by it, and they loved it, but they're also freaking out because they're all on acid. Grateful Dead people, You should see the video. It's a really funny video. Look up Grateful Dead freak out about levitation. Hey, what's up? So I realized that if you have a little bit of an open schedule and you are perceptive and aware and observant and street smart about other people's intentions when you meet new people, and you have that, you allow that intuition to flow of being able to see when a door is opening and knowing that I'm supposed to be here at this point in time. I'm supposed to be here. I might not know why, but I'm supposed to be here and doing this. Even though this mishap happened, even though I have a flat tire right now, it was meant to happen. To maybe make me get late, be late to somewhere. It was meant to happen because that's the magic. And I started to see the magic happening all around me, all the pleasant coincidences that were happening. And I made a video about it where I describe what real magic is and how you can unlock the real magic inside of you, right? And I realized this along the tour, and I slept with several different women, I had little flings with different girls, as I went on this tour. It's very easy to just go with the intentions and feel the energy and the motion. It also helped that I was refraining from smoking weed. I quit smoking weed by this point. And I wasn't really drinking alcohol. And being completely sober helped me unlock the magical, authentic self that is me. Because I wasn't clouding it with the masks of being on alcohol or drugs. And this is not pre-recorded. I swear to God. And then, next we're coming to, I went to Burning Man after this tour, and I met the love of my life. Coincidentally, she was my Craigslist rideshare, and it was so magical. And this is when the real magic happens. In the next episode, I'm going to talk about seeing the flying snake. How me and my girlfriend saw the flying snake, and how my girlfriend, Melissa, look, here she is. How she is truly magical. And so much has happened ever since then. And I hope you guys stay tuned. I hope you guys watch my next video where I chased the burglar all throughout my neighborhood. And I caught him. And the police came and they got him. I made a citizen's arrest. Okay, guys. Now I'm going to look at your questions. I will answer a few questions and then I have to. Is it time to eat food now?
Yes.
Oh my God, I got to start eating food, you guys. I am done with the fast. I'm going to break the Baha'i fast with you guys. If you guys are Baha'is, shout out, Alawapa. I'm going to break the fast. Sorry, guys. I'm going to come back in a second. Melissa, will you talk to them for a second? Please. I would love it forever.
I'm also hungry too.
Oh, you're doing something?
Yes, and I'm hungry.
Oh my gosh, I'm coming back, guys. Here I am. Oh my gosh, here I am. Oh, you guys didn't leave. You're so awesome. Okay. Oh my gosh. Everybody. I'm so good. You guys, I can't think straight even. I'm getting, literally I'm sober, but I'm getting high off of fasting and being hungry all day long. I really am. I can't, I've levitated on these live streams before. Everybody always wants me to levitate, like, you know? I do it all the time, and I'm so hungry right now. Oh, I just want to eat. I just want to eat something right now, guys. I'm sorry. But you can ask me any questions. This is one chance. Any of those stories I said, you can ask me any questions that you want. Malachi! Do you like the CD? Oh man. I didn't do American Idol. I did America's Got Talent. They want me to go on the Gong Show. Have any of you guys heard of the Gong Show? You're not dumb, man. On America's Got Talent, it went really well the first 2 rounds, but then the 3rd round, they sabotaged me. Oh man, you guys should look up the Gong Show. You really should. It's really, really awesome show, as a matter of fact. So I want to let you guys know some of the places and cities that I'm going to be going on tour to. Are you guys excited? I'm going to do a summer tour. Alright? Oh man, they sabotaged me on the disappearing act. Watch it again. The disappearing thing was an illusion that they created. Okay. I'm going to tell you guys. If you're in the LA area, I'm going to have some shows coming up. But I started doing open mics, actually, to do stand-up comedy. Just because I want to tell jokes. I'll tell you some of my jokes at a later live feed. Here are the places I'm going on tour this summer. I'm going to be going to New Orleans, Louisiana. That's my favorite city. I'm going to be going to Atlanta, Georgia. I'm going to be going to Asheville, North Carolina. I'm going to be going to a suburb outside of Washington, D.C. in Virginia. I think it's like Hartfield or like Harmon. Then I'm going to be performing in Ithaca, New York. New York City. Oh man, I might be driving through Indianapolis. Then I'm going to go to the Upper Peninsula of Michigan to do a show in Ironwood, Michigan. Then I'm going to do the South Dakota State Fair in the middle of South Dakota somewhere. I think it's a town that starts with a P, Prairie or something. South Dakota. Then I'm going to go all the way over to Washington State. Do a show. I don't even remember the name of the county. I need a list, really. It's in western Washington. In a rural area. A lot of small towns because I really appreciate the small town audience. They love it. They're easier to please. Anyways, guys, I want to come to Kansas City. You guys, if you want me to come to your city, help me book a show in your town, you know? Like to 5. If you guys have any connections, and if you guys know any personal contacts of people that work at like venues or clubs or people that have events, Like, talk to somebody, get me booked out there. Because if you want me to come, I will come. All right. Mm, well, Ireland would be more expensive, but I mean, if I'm gonna go internationally, look, if you were my friend and you're gonna host me and I was gonna do a show there in Ireland, I would do it for $1,000. That's really cheap to like fly all the way out to Ireland. But then to get my props and the airplane ticket out there, it would be a lot more expensive. But look, like if I'm going to like a venue or something, if you help me get a show in Indianapolis or something, I would just like take a portion of the door proceeds, or like, I try to make $300 to $500 if I do a show somewhere, minimum. New Falls, New York. Maybe that I should go there too. But look, that rate of like $300 is actually like my local rate. So that only works if I'm like passing through, right? If it's like convenient. If it's inconvenient, if I have to get on